This is Megan, and welcome to Stories in the Woods. Today's forest fact comes from Charlotte.
Did you know that cows have 4 stomachs?
4 stomachs? Wow, Charlotte. That is fascinating. Wonder how much pizza I could eat with 4 stomachs. Hold on. This reminds me of a story. Would you like to hear it? Okay, all you humans and forest dwellers, here we go. Rosie was born one stormy day in the spring. The wind howled outside, shaking the barn doors, and rain pummeled the roof. Rosie was blissfully unaware of all of this as she came into the world on shaky, spindly calf legs. She spent the first moments tucked close to her mother, but soon she was brought to her own cozy pen. Rosie watched intrigued as the humans offered her a strange object filled with frothy liquid. She took a tentative sip, and the warm drink washed down her throat into her stomach. Rosie grew to love the delicious taste of her milk bottles, and always paced in excitement just like the other calves when the farmer would come with their meals. But then, one day, something very odd happened. A strange, new thing was brought with Rosie's morning milk. She sniffed at it and stuck her tongue out. Blech! She was not interested and ignored the new food. Then, the next day, it showed up again. Rosie glanced around and noticed some of the other calves were tentatively nibbling the new meal. Rosie's friend Marvin, a little mouse that hung around the barn, popped his head into Rosie's pen. "Hi, Rosie," he squeaked cheerfully. "Hi, Marvin." Rosie didn't turn to greet him, but instead stared warily at the new food in front of her. "Everything okay?" Marvin scurried over to check out what she was looking at so intently. "I'm not sure. Something strange has happened." Rosie nodded in the direction of the pail hanging on her pen. Marvin hoisted himself up and peered inside, his long whiskers twitching as he examined what was in the pail. "Ah, starter grain!" he exclaimed. "What is that? Why do they keep bringing it with my milk?" Rosie grumbled. Marvin snickered. "Rosie, the farmer is helping you switch from milk to what you'll eat as a big cow. It's nothing to be afraid of. See, a lot of your friends are giving it a try." Rosie shook her head. "Nope, no way. I am not eating anything except my milk. Besides, it smells really funny." She wrinkled her nose and stuck out her long tongue. Marvin tapped a little paw against his chin. "Maybe we can make it taste better for you." He scurried off with no mention of where he was going, and reappeared 10 minutes later with a sugar cube tucked under his little mouse arm. "Sugar from the horses' stables," he squeaked excitedly. Rosie nodded her approval. "Oh, yes, surely a little sugar will make it taste delicious." Marvin heaved the cube into her pail and dropped it to the bottom with a muffled thwomp. Rosie tentatively licked the grain and... Bleh! She spat it out, right onto Marvin. "Oops," she said sheepishly as her friend stood dripping with cow saliva and bits of grain stuck to his fur. One puddle dunk later, and Marvin was back with more ideas for his bovine friend. "Cake!" he exclaimed. "What's that?" Rosie asked. "It's something I've seen humans eating, and it smells delicious. Usually they sing a song before they eat it, and they light it on fire." "What?" Rosie's loud moo made several of the other calves crane their necks to see what was going on. I don't want to do anything with fire, Rosie said, shaking her head.
Oh, well, I don't think you need to light it on fire to eat it.
But how do you make a cake? Marvin stroked his whiskers and thought.
Maybe we can use the farm kitchen. I sneak in there all the time to borrow cheese, and they have tons of food.
So that night, when the farmer was doing the dinner rounds, Rosie slipped a small rock Marvin had brought her into the pen to stop it from locking. When she was sure all the other calves were asleep, she quietly nudged the metal door and it swung open quietly. She made her way slowly to the large farmhouse that was still and dark for the night. Marvin was waiting for her at the back door.
Wait here,
he whispered, and he slipped through a small hole that was so tiny Rosie could barely see it. The back door swung open with Marvin precariously swinging from the handle. He dropped to the floor and motioned for Rosie to follow him. She peered inside, but everything was dark and it was hard to see. Marvin, she whispered into the black.
Over here.
His little voice came from somewhere in the back corner. Rosie shuffled through the kitchen, looking at all the mysterious items. She had no idea how to bake a cake and was hoping her little mouse friend had some idea.
Okay.
Marvin put his tiny paws on his hips and surveyed the things he had collected.
I've watched this done 100 times. Should be no problem.
And with that, Marvin got to work dumping in something white that puffed up all over him and the counter, stirring in milk, cracking in eggs, shell and all. Rosie tried to interrupt. She wasn't sure about the eggshell. The crunchy outside didn't look very appealing to her, but Marvin was the maestro. He couldn't be interrupted. His paws were a blur, his brow furrowed. He was covered in white from head to toe. Rosie was in awe. Surely this would be the best cake that had ever been made.
And now the piece de resistance,
declared Marvin, and he sprinkled some of the starter grain into the batter.
Now it needs to go in the oven, if you wouldn't mind, Rosie.
So Rosie grabbed the handle of the oven door and pulled it down. Together, her and Marvin carefully managed to get the cake tin in the oven. Now what? Whispered Rosie to her friend.
Well, usually the humans wait a bit, pull it out, and ta-da!
Ta-da?
Ta-da!
Marvin nodded his head confidently, and the two friends fell into a hushed silence, watching and watching and watching. So, do we take it out now? Rosie asked after a while.
Sure.
Marvin looked more unsure now, and Rosie was a little worried. She pulled open the oven door again, and they peered inside. The cake was a sloppy, green, stinky mess. Marvin twirled his whiskers. Rosie wrinkled her nose and backed up. But she bumped into something, and there was a loud crash, boom, clink. Footsteps came pounding down the stairs, and the lights came on, bright and blinding for Rosie, and she blinked in confusion. "Oh, my stars, a calf in the kitchen!" The farmer's mouth hung open in surprise. Rosie mooed and grinned, and it was the farmer's turn to blink in confusion. "Were you baking a cake?" he exclaimed in disbelief. Never in all his many years of farming had he had something like this happen. He gently guided Rosie back to her pen and stood in front of it, scratching his head, trying to piece together how the young calf had ended up in his house. Rosie watched him peer in her pail, and he saw she hadn't touched the starter grain yet. "Oh, little one," he said, rubbing her nose. "You aren't feeling quite ready for your grain yet, eh?" Rosie shook her head sadly. Had she failed the farmer? Would he be mad? That's okay. The farmer didn't sound mad at all. You'll know when you're ready, and I'm here to help. Why don't we start just by giving it a sniff and small lick? Rosie tentatively gave the smallest, tiniest lick. It wasn't so bad. Maybe she could do this after all. The farmer came every day to check in with her, helping her try a few more licks, then a few bites, and eventually she was eating grain just like all the other calves. One day, the farmer came in carrying something on a plate. He leaned down so Rosie could see, and she mooed in delight. It was a cake, properly mixed and baked, made just for her. Rosie grew and grew and eventually became a huge, fully grown cow. She didn't often think back to that time of her life, a wobbly calf, unsure and wary of all the new things around her. Except for when spring blustered in each year, bringing new life on the farm. She would watch the new calves being led to their pens and feel a rush of gratitude for the kind farmer and mouse friend who had helped her all those years ago. It was always a good reminder that she was capable of great courage and to forge her own path to pay that kindness forward. You know, Rosie reminds me it's completely normal to find new foods a little scary. I remember when I was in grade 4, I tried salmon for the first time. I did not like the smell, I did not like the texture, and I did not like the taste. I spat it out and put it in the garbage. I thought that I would never like salmon. But I tried it again as a grown-up, and turns out I like the taste and texture a lot more. In fact, after trying salmon a bunch now, I love it. We're always changing and growing as individuals. It's okay to feel nervous about new foods. Hopefully you have someone you trust to help you. Make sure you share your feelings with them. I know you can be brave just like Rosie the Cow. Stories in the Woods are original stories by me, Megan Schmitz. Thank you to Charlotte for today's Forest Fact. If you would like to send me an interesting fact about a forest, plant, or animal, please email me at storiesinthewoodspodcast@gmail.com. That's storiesinthewoodspodcast@gmail.com. You can find me at Littles in the Woods on Instagram or Facebook for nature play and tips for getting little explorers outside. Thanks for joining me. I can't wait to meet again for another Story in the Woods.